Again, Bob Coppage, CEO, Simplex-IT, Crotch the Old Geek, all that good fun stuff. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, today I want to talk about change and why change is hard. And this is one of those where you're going to get a lot of books out there that are going to talk about change, bringing yourself, changing yourself, changing your friends, changing your job, changing pretty much just about everything. But the bottom line is people resist change. And being in the IT business, that's hard because IT ain't nothing if it ain't about change. And part of the biggest challenge we have is how do we encourage and how do we accept and how do we champion appropriate levels of change? And what I want to talk about here is really the two bottom line issues, in my opinion, why people resist change. And it's WIIFM and NIMBY. Now, most of you, if you've been with the IT world at all, you know that three-letter acronyms are critical in order to being in IT. These are both five-letter acronyms. Let that sink in for a minute. We're talking 5 letters for each one of them. That must mean they're important for some delusional reason. But the bottom line is that when you're trying to bring change to an organization, or again, change within yourself, you get resistance from people because of WIIFM, which stands for What's in it for me, and NIMBY, which stands for Not in my backyard. And the reason I bring these up is because at the end of the day, you want to, if you're trying to implement positive change, you want to increase the probability, the percentage chance that the change implementation is going to be successful. And by the way, at the end of the day, it's a percentage chance. And the way you do it is you get buy-in. And the buy-in, again, you got to consider WIIFM and NIMBY. So let's talk about WIIFM first. WIIFM is what's in it for me. So you've got to be able to talk in terms of how is the person who is going to have to accept the change. You're going to have to talk to them in terms of what about their life, however they measure it, is going to be better because of this change. Now, I want to be very clear here. This scales. So you could be talking to an organization. You could be talking to management of an organization. You could be talking to a department head. You could be talking to individuals. Every single one of those sets or subsets get to evaluate WIIFM on their own. Now, in some cases, WIIFM can be, hey, guess what? You do this, you get to stay employed. That's great, but you're really putting yourself into an adversarial position. Whereas if you look at it and say, what aspect of this change is going to make that person's life better in a way that they'll value it? Now, if you're talking about organizations, you can talk to the CEO, for example, and essentially say, however you're measuring, whatever your KPIs, key performance indicators are for your job, those KPIs are going to be improved because of this change. Your revenue is going to go up. Your cost is going to go down. Your infrastructure is going to be better, more secure. You're going to be able to get this job, this client. You're going to be able to increase staff and increase profitability, or decrease staff and increase profitability, whatever. But you're going to be able to say, this is what's going to be good from your measurement. Similarly, if you go to a department, you'll be able to say, hey, you implement this, you're going to have a faster turnaround in terms of your advertising campaigns. You're going to be able to track your clients' purchasing habits better. You're going to be able to track the vendor performance. You're going to be able to bring in more better employees, whatever. But you're going to be able to speak specifically to that department's measurement. Then you talk to the individual. The individual is basically looking at, well, my productivity is measured by how many new clients I bring in. You're going to be able to cut the time necessary or the expense necessary to talk to potential or new clients by 10%, 20%. You're going to be able to increase your call rates by this percent. You're going to be able to do whatever. But in all of these cases, you're focusing on the audience. You're focusing on the audience of the moment in terms of what you're saying is going to happen to their perceived wants, their perceived desires. And by doing that and saying, here's how your world will be better. Because what's the alternative? The alternative is you're saying, hey, change because we want you to. Change because the other guy over there wants it. And that's a hard sell. Some people are good enough, strong enough, whatever, to accept that. Most people aren't. Most people will resist it. And that brings us to the next one. NIMBY, not in my backyard. That's pretty much the opposite of WIIFM, except in this case, what NIMBY says is essentially, I'm not going to do that because it sounds like an inconvenience. You'll notice I said sounds because in some cases, NIMBY is a perceived issue because perception is reality. So if you're asking someone to go ahead and do something that's going to create an additional burden on them, and remember, they get to decide what's a burden, it has to be offset by a WIIFM. So if you're basically saying, oh, and by the way, you're going to have these additional 5 minutes per call work that you're going to have to do. Oh, well, that's bad. But your call percentage, your success rate on the calls is going to go up by 20%. Oh, that's not so bad then. Or you're going to have this increased burden, but we're going to give you a raise because we recognize the fact you're going to do. So NIMBYs are important to recognize and be upfront about it. And the same thing I said, CEO sees NIMBYs, department heads see NIMBYs, individuals see NIMBYs. And if you get ahead of it, then you control the narrative. And in some ways, it's more important to be ahead of the NIMBYs than it is ahead of the WIIFMs. Because that way you can control to scale it or to identify it or to talk about ways to offset or to minimize the NIMBYs or to put it in perspective against what the WIIFMs are for that person. So that you, as the agent of change, can actually control that dialogue. Now, here's the other thing, is it's subject to interpretation above and beyond work. So you could also be basically saying that, hey, this is going to free up some of your time so you can actually see your family. Okay, some of us, not sure whether that's a WIIFM or a NIMBY, but the idea, though, is that in some cases, a business-oriented WIIFM or NIMBY can actually be communicated to somebody from a personal perspective. Or you can essentially say, hey, this is your opportunity to learn this new technology. So yeah, you're going to have to learn this new stuff, but it's going to be a good resume skill. You know, one of the things we do a ton of videos, simplex-it.com/learning-center. And I'm constantly, and Patty is also sales and marketing director, we're constantly talking to our employees about, hey, you guys, come and help us with the videos, write some of the scripts, be part of the videos, all that. And, we're an IT company. So as you can see, we're all extroverts, as in none of us. But one of the things I constantly impress on people is this is a great way to help establish in your future when, you're looking to find employment beyond Simplex-IT, which who would ever want to leave here? But when they're looking to do that, that is an opportunity for them to extend their resume a little bit, extend their skill sets, and to establish differentiators between themselves and their competition if they're going for another job. All right. So similarly, the same thing would be true if you're, let's say, you're looking to bring somebody on and you're looking to do a Salesforce implementation and you're looking to bring somebody on board to do that. You can essentially talk about how the skill of using this type of product is actually a great padding for the resume. Now, I want you to think about this. Here's a situation where if you have somebody who's relatively new in their career and new in their professional world, that's a WIIFM. Because they're going to be that much more available or hireable to companies that are using a Salesforce product. Now, talk the same talk to somebody who's near retirement. That's a NIMBY because you're asking them to learn a completely new topic or product or service or skill or whatever you want to call it. And it's not necessarily going to help them in their career moving forward. Now, some people still love challenges, love learning new things. But you have the exact same change agent being brought in, but to one person it's a WIIFM and to another person the exact same job in the exact same company in the exact same implementation of change. It's a NIMBY. And it's up to you, agent of change. It's up to you to make sure that you're communicating effectively and honestly.
Don't let IT overwhelm you. Simplex-IT's Learning Center provides easy-to-understand answers to your most commonly asked IT questions. Our videos cover both technical and non-technical topics, everything from cybersecurity to cloud computing, managed services to co-managed services, and how easy it is to work with us. All so you can stay ahead of the game and maximize your IT. We have over 100 videos, so visit simplex-it.com today and look for our Learning Center. And not all videos have Bob in them.
Wait, what?
Simplify your complex IT with Simplex-IT.
The other thing that's interesting is there is actually a temporal version of NIMBY and WIIFM that I don't think we pay much attention to. And that is essentially where you do something today that's going to impact you down the road. So you may look at it and basically say, I don't want to work out today. That's a NIMBY. I don't want to do that. That's not going to get me to work out. And future you is going, oh, that's in it for me. But you have to make that understanding a little bit of it can actually be both the exact same option, the exact same opportunity, the exact same thing that you're looking to do. So how does that work in life? I just paused. So the reason I bring up the temporal side of things is because actually, from a certain perspective, future you may hate current you, or vice versa, because you're causing future you to be dependent upon what current you does. So future you is looking at all of these WIIFMs. I'm going to learn this new skill. I'm going to be this much more hireable. I'm going to be in much better shape. I'm going to be more active. But current you is looking at, oh, look at all this stuff I got to take on. I got to start doing. I got to start learning. And there's a balance that has to go on. But you're the agent of change, right? But you notice that there are such a large number of people out there who are coaches. And those coaches are trying to, among other things, get the future you and the current you in sync with both expectations and responsibilities, which is kind of cool. A couple of things on this I want to talk about. First of all, what is buy-in? When we're talking about change, the buy-in is essentially the people who are going to be stakeholders, if you will, on this change process, that they are going to accept and they are going to move forward with their responsibilities. And that responsibility could be simple approval and endorsement on the part of a CEO. It could be opening the checkbook. It could be they're going to make it part of their job. It could be they're going to spend extra resources because they're going to have to learn stuff. And so it could take some weekends or some evenings or the like. Buy-in is essentially accepting the NIMBY and hoping or expecting the WIIFM. Okay? And you have to make sure that you're doing reasonable things to get that buy-in. And one of the worst things to do is it's their job, they'll do it because they're told to. And to a certain degree, that is actually an acceptable premise, but there has to be some seasoning with that plate. There has to be some other aspects of what is WIIFM or what is NIMBY, especially in this day and age as far as how tough it is to get employees. The other thing to keep in mind is, and this will be the final point on this, is evolutionary versus revolutionary when we're talking about change. Take a look at it, and again, remember the perspective. But when we're looking at making changes within an organization, ask the question, is this evolutionary change or revolutionary change? Because evolutionary change meaning that, yeah, it's different, but it's not that different. And again, it's subject to perception, but that is usually a better buy-in. Okay, with one exception, we'll talk about that. So the evolutionary change is usually a better buy-in versus revolutionary, which we're significantly changing things. Well, why are we doing that? Because the need is that significant or the opportunity is that significant. So if you're going to take your organization and it is having some bad times, there are some challenges, there are some issues, it may be more needed for revolutionary. Whereas, yeah, things are okay, we're just going to make a bit of a tweak. Then it's more time for evolutionary change. Don't get them confused, because if you present something as an evolutionary change and it's in fact revolutionary, you're downplaying the impact it's going to have on your stakeholders in terms of this change. And that's going to make it harder and harder for them to trust you, let alone accept the WIIFM and NIMBY that you're presenting. So how do you deal with change? Let me know some comments below. I shouldn't say below because this is not a video mostly. So, well, let me know some comments. And remember to share, like, subscribe. Slaughter a mongoose for me sometime during a full moon. You never know. Could be interesting. And as always, this is the Crotchety Old Geek, Bob Coppage, Simplex-IT, Biz Tech Twists. Catch you next time. Bye.